राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। ओम नमो भगवते तुभ्यं वासुदेवाय धीमहि प्रद्युम्नाय अनिरुद्धाय नमः शङ्कर्षणाय च। नमस्ते पुरुषं त्र्यादिमीश्वरं प्रकृते परम् अलक्ष्यं सर्वभूतानाम् अन्तर्बहिर्वस्थितं कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकीनन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। नमः पङ्कजनाभाय नमः पङ्कजमालिने नमः पङ्कजनेत्राय नमस्ते पङ्कजाङ्घ्रये। श्रीकृष्ण कृष्ण सखा विष्णु वृषभावनिरुग राजन्यवंशधनानपवर्गवीर्य गोविन्द गोदीयसुरार्तिहरावतार योगेश्वर अखिल गुरो भगवन् नमस्ते। नमो ब्रह्मण्य देवाय गो ब्रह्मण्य हिताय च जगतिताय कृष्णाय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। जयतां सुरतोर्पङ्गो मम मन्दमतेर्गति वत्सर्वस्वपादाम्बोजो राधा मदनमोहनो दिव्याद्वृन्दारण्यकल्पद्रुमात् श्रीमद्रत्नागर सिंहासनस्थौ श्रीमद्राधा शीलगोविन्ददेवो प्रेष्ठालिभिः सेव्यमानौ स्मरामि श्रीमान् रासरसारम्भि वंशवटतटस्थितः कर्शनवेणुस्वनैर्गोपीर्गोपीनाथ श्रियस्तु नः। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे
Hare
हरे
Rama,
राम
Hare
राम
Rama,
राम
Rama
हरे
Rama,
हरे।
Hare Hare.
हरे कृष्णा। Am I audible to everyone? Am I loud enough, Prabhuji?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji, very good. Very
Absolutely,
good.
absolutely.
Okay, Prabhuji. So we'll start from where we stopped yesterday, where the Lord actually enjoyed fighting with Hiranyaksha, and then Brahmaji had to intervene, saying that please stop enjoying this fight, and now somewhere you have to kill the Hiranyaksha and just end this leela, so that we can revive the Mother Earth back to its position, its orbit, so that the entire creation can be balanced once again. So that's where we had stopped. But before that, one of the Mataji actually had asked a question saying that every 200 years somebody, the Lord incarnates one or the other way. And I had said maybe I misunderstood the question. Actually the Lord incarnates at a particular time, and it is already pre-mentioned in the Shastras, whereas the Lord sends his messengers or Amsha Untaras like Ramanuja or Madhvacharya, when as and when, or Shankaracharya, as and when it requires. So when there is a, in Kali Yuga, the Lord actually is called Triguna, but uh, he, of course, as a Lord Chaitanya, he appeared as a hidden avatar, and then also he appeared as a Lord Buddha, which was pre-mentioned. But also he has sent certain personalities which are empowered personalities like Madhvacharya, the Ramanujacharya, Shankaracharya, and saints, various saints in various regions. You will see the Maharashtra, there is a Sant Jnaneshwar, Sant Tukaram, to revive the Bhakti movement, and also in Gujarat, Narsi Mehta, in South, again Madhvacharya, in Ramanujacharya. So the all over India, you'll find a lot of saints during the 12th century, 14th century, 15th century, 16th century. Um, uh, so those basically revived the bhakti and gave back. So bhakti was always there, but it is the process of cheto darpanam arjanam. So like we also have bhakti in our heart. We also as a soul and part and parcel of Krishna, we also are, we are spiritual spark actually, and the bhakti is there, but it is covered by the ignorance at the moment. So the Lord Chaitanya has given this process, the Cheto Darpana Marjana. It is like that you have a mm, nice home at the back home, and if you are visiting after 10 years, And if you look at the mirror there, I'm sure you will not get a picture as what you beautiful person you are there. So what initially you start taking the groom and you will start cleaning up the place, and then slowly you will wipe with the dry cloth, and then probably the next step is basically you will take the choline, and then probably you will wipe with a wet cloth, and then that's how the mirror will be absolutely clear, and then you will be able to see yourself as you are. It's the same process, the bhakti is always there, but time again, um, externally it gets covered by the influences, external influences, like Mataji rightly mentioned, the Mughal aggression, the British aggression, and then our culture actually gets covered by their overpowered by their culture, and the bhakti gets hidden. So it just discovering bhakti. That's what the saints do, and the same process applies to us also. The bhakti is there, but we have to revive that through the process of the yajna. And in this age, the yajna is nothing but the Harinam Sankirtan, which is mentioned in all the scriptures across the India. So the holy name is the Sankirtan movement is where the Lord Chaitanya has recommended, especially, and also in the various slokas of Srimad Bhagavatam also we'll see that Sankirtan movement, Sankirtan or Nam Sankirtan is the recommended yajna for this age. So that's what I just wanted to a little add to the Mataji's question. So Mataji was right saying that every 200 years when the bhakti gets diluted or gets impure, somebody intervenes, the divine force. Either it's the Lord's Shaktavesh avatar, or it is the one of the saints is representative pure devotees who come and revive the bhakti, which is absolutely right.
Yes, Prabhuji.
So
Yesterday I was trying to say the agents. Yesterday I was trying to say
yes,
this one. Yeah, thank you for understanding.
yeah, you are right. I mistook it only reference to the incarnation of the Lord, but probably you are referring to the
Lord or the
various
agents or
personalities,
whatever
not
in different
or
states.
the agents or the saints.
Yes,
You are
yeah.
right. You are right,
Thank
Mataji
you,
there.
thank you.
So so the considering the time constraint, we'll start our story further, um, and we'll take Prabhuji. Can you take us to the next slide, please?
Prabhu, you're there? I think it got disconnected. It is interior.
Haribol?
Yeah, Prabhu. I think we
Yeah,
missed.
so we are back,
Yeah,
everyone.
yeah.
Yeah, so what happens is that this end of Hiranyaksha, has a turning point in a life of Hiranyakashipu. He gets so, first of all, he gets so angry that how can Lord Vishnu can come and intervene in our life, and first of all they are born with the envy, in the mood of envy to the Lord, and the killing of Hiranyaksha, aggravates that anger further towards the Lord. And Hiranyaksha, first of all, what he does is, yesterday I spoke about Hiranyakashipu Gita. Actually, you can call it Hiranyakashipu. The instructions the consoling instructions to his brother's wife, nephews, and mother, Diti. So he speaks the same knowledge as Lord Krishna has spoken to Arjuna, and basically tells them that the body is perishable, the soul is immortal. So why worry about it, and that kind of thing. So he gives example from various stories of Yamaraj, and so on and so forth, and which is a detailed chapter itself, which will not go to detail, but the instructions of Hiranyakashipu are as good as Lord Krishna to Arjuna. And as a result of that, the family of Hiranyaksha actually overcomes from the grief, and then everything is back to normal life. And Hiranyakashipu, during even after having such a great knowledge, his envy towards, his inimical nature towards the Lord has not decreased at all. That Pratishod, or his feelings, his envious feelings towards the Lord, has multifold increased rather than decreased. So he was so angry, he wanted to take the revenge. And in that revengeful mood, he actually goes to do tapasya. He goes for tapasya, doing penances, and he performs very severe tapasya. The tapasya with the intention, with an intention of even achieving the Brahma Loka itself. He wanted to take the entire universe under him. The Swargalokas, all the lokas which are above the earth, and the all the Patal lokas which are. So he wanted to rule the entire universe, including the Brahma Loka. That was his intention. This intention is told by Devatas to Brahmadev. And then finally, the tapasya was so severe that he stood on his toes, as you see in the picture. He stood on his toes for 100 celestial years. That's what the Srimad Bhagavatam, which roughly comes to, now there are different explanations of the celestial years. So it can come to say 200,000 years also, or plus minus here and there, or it can come to 10,000 years also. So which again, I don't have the explanation at the moment, but he really did a very severe tapasya for a very long time. So that's what we have to take the message from here. He did penances for such a long time that he started generating heat out of his tapasya. As a result of his tapasya, he started generating heat from his body, and the heat actually, started affecting the upper lokas, and also as well as the patal lokas. Yeah, the entire universe was terrified. Even the all the residents of heavenly planets started leaving their planets, and they actually went to the Brahmaloka. That is what is explaining. So there is no perfect number is mentioned. He does severe tapasya for many years. That's what the Srimad Bhagavatam shloka, the particular shloka says. But when Lord Brahma, asked the question, said about how can, without food and water, who can do such a tapasya for 100 celestial years? That's where somewhere the explanation comes in. So there is no, if you calculate the celestial years, it comes around 20 into 6 into 12, that kind of combination comes when Brahma himself had done tapasya for 1,000 celestial years. So that's how the calculation come, but it can be, very vague statement at the moment. So we'll not get into the nitty-gritties of the celestial years at the moment, because that will just divert our attention. But he did tapasya for a very long period of time. That's what I wanted to conclude here. And as a result of that penances, the heat was generated, which was affecting all the three lokas. And then finally, the Devata said that, please, you have to do something, because he was actually, taking, doing penances to please the Lord Brahma. So Brahmaji had his duty, and then he decided, along with the other sages like Bhrigu Muni and other munis, that his sons were there. They all together, they went down to see Hiranyakashipu. And then Lord Brahmaji, pleased with his tapasya, next slide, Prabhu, please. Then you see that, his tapasya was so severe that his entire body was actually chewed away by the ants, and only the what you call the bones were remaining. Rest entire body was taken, and nobody could see even his body. So the ant, below the ant hills, nobody could see. Only Brahmaji could hear Brahmaya Nama, that kind of mantra. So he, located Hiranyakashipu in that way. And then he sprinkled the water from his kamandalu, Brahmaji, and then Hiranyakashipu revived his body with a much more, strength and better complexion. His body was like golden complexion. It was shining, which with much more strength. And then Hiranyakashipu bows down to Brahmaji, and Brahmaji says, "I am pleased with your tapasya. None of the daityas in the past, or none of the devatas in the past, have done this kind of tapasya. So such a severe tapasya, and nobody will do in the future also." So that was the glorification of his tapasya, his penances by Brahmaji himself. And then he says, "Okay, finally, I am pleased with your tapasya. Please go and ask the boon." And you know that the boon asked by Hiranyakashipu was such a complicated boon that first of all, he doesn't want to become old, okay, which is the against the nature. Then, secondly, he doesn't want to have any combatant, equal combatant. None of the combatant should be equal in strength with him. So he wanted to be a unique soul, most powerful person in the world, in the entire universe. Then uh, he did not wanted to be killed by any of the creations created by Brahma. So whatever so far Brahmaji has created, he did not wanted to be killed by any of those, nor by devatas, nor by any pashus, that animals, or not by any human beings, not by any rakshasas, other rakshasas. So he was protecting himself all around. He should not be killed by any asra. Asra means any of the weapons, not by any shastras. So asra or shastra, sorry, shastra means basically the weapon, and asra means any divya asra, which is invited or invoked by the mantras. So he did not wanted to be killed by any of those asra or shastra. He did not wanted to be killed in the daytime or during the night. He did not wanted to killed inside the house or outside the house. So he was protecting himself all around, all possible combinations and permutations he tried to protect himself. And Brahmaji said, "Okay, tathastu." So that's how he got very complicated boon from almost close to that he could not be, defeated by anybody in the entire universe. On that basis, he gained strength. And after gaining the strength, what he did, this is again very important. He said, if I have to kill Vishnu, first I have to decrease his strength. And how can I do that? So first of all, I have to, where he gets his strength, and he gets his strength from the yagyas. So this was the misunderstanding of Hiranyakashipu. Actually, Lord is a Purnamadam Purnamidam. He is a complete. But he thought just by people on the earth are doing yagyas, he gets strength. It's not like that. Okay, people do it out of the devotion, and he, being the Bhaktaram, he is the only worshipable Lord. So people offer the yagya phal to him. The devatas, yes, of course, by taking their share, they get the strength. The devatas, the demigods. But Lord Narayan is a complete. He doesn't require any external strength to become more powerful. But it is a result of Varnashram Dharma that he wants the earth to be ruled in that form, in that way. So he propagates the Yagya Dharma, which is fine. But what Hiranyakashipu did is that he's saying that first I will kill all the strength points. So what he did, he started killing Brahmanas, which is required, because if you don't have Brahmanas, you cannot perform yagyas. Then he started killing the cows, because if you don't have a cow, you will not have a ghee, pure ghee for performing yagya. He started killing farmers, destroying their field. If you don't have the green vegetables to eat or the grass for cows to eat, then you cannot protect the cows, you cannot nurture them, so you will not have pure ghee. You will now have Brahmanas, because Brahmanas were killed. So automatically Yagya will stop. And that's how the strength of Vishnu will be reduced. This is the conception of Hiranyakashipu. And as a result of that, you see all the Rakshasas, including Ravana, did the same thing. In order, they think that the Lord can actually be reduced. We are able to reduce his strength. This is a misconception. They think that they are more powerful than the Lord because of their ignorance, and they kill this culture, the Vedic civilization. So you see, if you are finding around you the cows are being killed, Brahmanas are not being protected, then and yagyas are not being performed, the Yuga Dharma is not being performed, then automatically adharma is increasing around you. And we find that situation, including in India, that the Brahminical culture is first of all being diluted, okay, then it is being corrupted, and it is being hated. Nobody nowadays in India wants to become a Brahminical. They don't want to come into the Brahminical culture. People don't want to give up the the suchi, basically the principle of nobody wanted to do tapasya, nobody wants to do wanted to keep suchi, nobody wants to do the sadhana. So these are the Brahminical culture, which is, you see, very few gurukulas are there right now in India which are propagating the pure Brahminical culture. Rest of the education system is actually a slaughterhouse. Prabhupada used to call this slaughterhouse because we are not protecting that. So Brahminis, we mean by Brahminical culture by the virtue of gunas, not necessarily by the birth of. There are a lot of people around the world which are born Brahmin, but not necessarily you can call them Brahmin, because there are a lot of injunctions from the scriptures that what a Brahmin should be. Even the Bhagavad Gita explains the lakshanas or the symptoms of the Brahmin. So the distinction is not between whether you are born Brahmin or non-Brahmin. Even the Prahlad Maharaj is here in Srimad Bhagavatam is referred as a Brahmana because he had all the symptoms of a Brahmana. Though he was born as a Daitya or Kshatriya, he was born in a demon's family. He was born in a Kshatriya because being a king, he was born in a royal Kshatriya family. But actually, Hiranyakashipu himself calls him Brahmin. So all the demons, what they do is, even including Hiranyakashipu, they destroy the Brahminical culture, then they destroy the cow protection, and they destroy the yagya process, which is where this is the root of dharma. If you are not protecting the Yuga Dharma, then which is basically protecting the yagya, then automatically the adharma starts increasing. And then Hiranyakashipu will become so powerful that he attacked the Swargaloka. He started ruling from the Nandanvan, which is the garden of Indradev. He took over the entire Swargaloka and other planet, the heavenly planets, and started ruling from there. And then from there, he was instructing his servants that to please go on earth and destroy all these brahmanas, farmers, cows, and everything. So this is the basis for demons, to destroy the Sanatan Dharma or the real Dharma. If you find doing that one, then you know where we are right at the moment. So it is our duty to first of all try to become a Brahmin, which is within our limits. We can, by doing our tapasya, doing our sadhana, keeping our mind, body clean, our words, our deeds, we should propagate the Brahminical culture, not necessarily Brahmin by birth. For example, I'll give you an example. In my family, my brother is a Brahminical initiated, so he's a Brahmin. I am a Shudra because I work for money, and so that's the definition. If you work for money, you're called Shudra. And my brother, he is doing tapasya, he's studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. He's preaching, he's doing his sadhana, he's taken shelter, he's not working for any money. So he can be a Brahmin. So born in the same family, one can be a Shudra, one can be a Brahmin. So that's the real concept of being a Brahminical. That's the real Varnashram Dharma. So there is no misconception here. I mean, a lot of devotees in ISKCON, they come from various backgrounds and they still become the Brahmins by virtue of gunas, by virtue of sadhana. So I'm sure there could be a lot of questions in the minds of people here, but that's the real process. That's the real Vedic Sanatan Dharma. Okay, and you will find a lot of people like Valmiki Rishi, born in a lower caste but become the first class devotee. Then the Shabari, who was born in a lower class, became the first class devotee. Then Sutta Goswami was born in a lower caste but became the first class Brahmin. Just by becoming Prahlad Maharaj himself, born in a demon family, became the one of the greatest Mahajana. So we'll have a lot of examples in our scriptures that the devotional service or being a Brahmin is not subject to a birth, but it is subject to the gunas, your actual behavior, your actual sadhana and tapasya behind it. So Hiranyakashipu destroyed all that, the Brahminical culture, the yajna process. So the devatas were, of course, becoming weak and they lost their battle with Hiranyakashipu and they ran away in various places. They were hiding in different places. Actually, some of them, actually, devatas were not supposed to come to Mother Earth, but they don't touch the earth. But they were hiding in various places in various forms just to hide from Hiranyakashipu. That was the scenario. And Hiranyakashipu controlled and he became so powerful that he was controlling all the 10 directions. Haribol? Haribol?
Sorry, Prabhuji. I think it's by
Haribol?
mistake.
Yeah, can we continue? Haribol?
Go ahead, Prabhu. Go
Yes,
ahead.
Prabhuji, you can continue.
Please continue. Let the nectar flow.
Yeah, so the Hiranyakashipu controlled all the 10 directions, all the Lokpalas. Lokpalas basically means the Indra is in charge of rain, the Agni is in charge of fire, the Vayu is Marutas are in charge of the wind. He controlled everybody. So even if, say, Mother Earth, for example, he became so powerful that the Mother Earth, despite nobody was performing yajna, the rains were falling, and Mother Earth was producing out of fear. Out of fear, she was producing more than required, as per the will of Hiranyakashipu. And he became so powerful. He controlled even the big devotees like Sri Narad Muni. And Narad Muni, who is supposed to be singing all the time the glories of Lord Vishnu, even had to glorify Hiranyakashipu time and again. Can you imagine? That was the power of Hiranyakashipu. He became so powerful that he became powerful next to Lord. No one else could, because of the boons that Brahmaji had given him, that except for Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh, nobody could even stand against him. So that powers he got by his tapasya. And then what happened is that during this, when he went for tapasya, Prabhuji, next slide please. What happened is that in between, this is like I'm taking you few years back again, when he had gone for tapasya, Lord Indra, just before he getting defeated by Hiranyakashipu, actually he attacked Hiranyakashipu's, the city where Hiranyakashipu was having his capital. He attacked his all the kingdom, and the Lord Indra actually destroyed all the other demons because they were powerful enough. This was again in the absence of Hiranyakashipu when he had gone for penances, performing penances. So during this time, he destroyed all the other demons. He defeated the demons, started running here and there, and then he also kidnapped the wife of Hiranyakashipu, Kayadu, and his intention was to kill the heir of, I mean, the next generation of Hiranyakashipu, because they were already saying that enough is enough. We are already, so much under pain due to Hiranyakashipu. We don't want his leniency, his lineage to be continued. So his intention was to take away Kayadu, who is a pregnant, and then let the child born and kill it. That was the intention of Indra. This again they were performing out of fear, the Devatas. Not necessarily it was a very great act, but they were performing that just to protect themselves. And they were about to take Kayadu. They had kidnapped Kayadu and they were taking to the heavenly planet. Narada Muni, who knew that who is in the womb, who is the Trikaldarshi, knowing that in the womb there lies a great devotee of the Lord, he requested Indra, please, this is not a great act. She's a just wife of Hiranyakashipu. So please hold on. Don't take her. Don't abuse her. She's a pregnant. So please leave it her in her position. I will take care of this thing. Then Indra argues that Narada Muni he says but we want to destroy the person who is to be next ruler of Hiranyakashipu and protect ourselves. So Narada Muni said, you don't know who is in the womb. You don't know whether it's a papatma or it's a punyatma. So please relieve her. And then what happens is that Indra, being respectful to the Sri Naradji, he says, okay, fine, as you said, Lord. So he goes away and Narad Muni takes charge of the Kayadu. And he says to the Kayadu, saying that in the absence of Hiranyakashipu, your husband, it is not safe for you to stay in the palace. So it's better you come with me and stay in my ashram. So Narad Muni takes her to his ashram and instructs her in the bhakti. Now again, this entire process is meant for Prahlad, who is supposed to be listening in the womb, not necessarily meant. Of course, the Kayadu could be also benefited from it, but she being a devotee of Hiranyakashipu and being a chaste wife, of course, she was subject to the Prativata Dharma that she was supposed to follow. But all the instructions were meant for Prahlad Maharaj. So if you go to the next slide, you will find that Narad Muni is sitting there and even the Kayadu is also sitting next to him. And you can see that she's carrying in her womb Prahlad Maharaj. I mean, not necessarily you can see the Prahlad Maharaj, but she's a pregnant. You can see that one. And this is again a lifetime lesson we have to take from the story, that it is so important to hear when you are pregnant. It is very important because whatever you do during your pregnancy, whatever you hear, the child is going to like or dislike the same thing when he becomes the little grown up. Because you know the story of Abhimanyu. You know there are a lot of scientific researches that particular serial liked, particular TV serial liked by a person during particular time, the child cries. You must have seen those videos. So the Garbhadharan samskaras and the listening process, especially in India, this was in the past, this was very well-known process, that when you are pregnant, people would start reading one or the other scriptures in the houses. So they will start reading Ramayana, or they will start reading Hari Vijay, they will start reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. The culture was there very much, I remember, during my childhood. So this culture was there very much, and amongst devotees nowadays, if you see the ISKCON devotees or any Vaishnava family, not necessarily ISKCON devotees, but there are a lot of other sampradayas, Vaishnava sampradayas in India, like in South we have Madhva Sampradaya, Ramanuja Sampradaya. These Vaishnava devotees, they make sure that when somebody is pregnant in the house, they are reading one or the other spiritual scriptures. This is So the importance of why? Because we don't believe that it's just the flesh in the womb. We believe that there is a soul in the womb, and he is all knowledgeable. Though he is in pain, say around say 4 or 5 months, all the various lingas or various angas, the body parts start developing. This is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam also. So the various and the as the fetus starts developing indriyas, various senses, he's listening, he's seeing. I mean, he can perceive everything, especially the hearing aspect is developed the first thing. So it's very important to listen to these spiritual scriptures. This is in general instructions to everybody. If anybody is pregnant, then they must actually the listening process or hearing process is most important, because if you will come to the Prahlad Maharaj's instructions, and the first instruction is Shravanam Kirtanam. So Shravanam is the first thing that he's propagating, he's emphasizing. So it is in general also, it is the most important thing, because you will become what you hear. So the Narad Muni ensured that Prahlad Maharaj is getting all that knowledge while he's in the womb, because later on he knew that he will not have a chance to hear anything, because none of the sadhus or any devotee will be able to enter into Hiranyakashipu's world. Narad Muni knew that. So all that he could give is during the pregnancy. He had his constraints, the constraint theory. So he knew that what the constraints were. So that's the reason he made this arrangement that until the Hiranyakashipu comes back, he holds Kayadu in his ashram, which is not actually very good for any sannyasi. But he knew there's a greater purpose. You can you imagine a young devotee and young female, though she is married, staying together. It's not a very good arrangement, materially speaking. But Narad Muni is much beyond. He is not a regular devotee. He has greater plans. So that's the reason he actually keeps Kayadu, the wife of Hiranyakashipu, in his ashram. And she also lived peacefully. It's not that there were any. She was. If you're not finding any association of male association comfortable, usually you don't want to stay there for longer. But she stayed peacefully because she was under bliss. Because Narad Muni is a pure devotee. Okay, and she stayed there, and you see that Narad Muni preached the entire philosophy Prahlad Maharaj while he was in the womb, because he knew that he will not get a chance later once he's born. Moving to the next slide, the Prahlad Maharaj actually stayed few years after even the birth. And now this again, there could be different versions as per the Vishnu Puran, Brahman Puran. Some Brahma Puranas might say that he was born in the palace of Hiranyakashipu. Some might say he was born in the Narada Muni ashram. But that's not a point to debate. The point is that Narad Muni, he had been blessed by Narad Muni, and right from the very young age, he had a complete knowledge of bhakti and complete surrender unto the Lord Vishnu. And this was unconditional. There was no, he didn't wanted to uh, gain anything from that particular process. He was totally a pure devotee. So that is the difference. That is the impact of association of a pure devotee. This is the only way. And in one of the instructions, Prahlad Maharaj feature slides, the next further slides, you will find that he instructs to one of his uh, fellow classmates that the only way to get away from the clutches of this material existence is that you should take the dust of the pure devotees or Vaishnavas, and you should take you should take a bath into that dust. That is the instruction. So we'll come to that instruction, but this is where Narad Muni, and then Prahlad Maharaj approximately returns when he's 5 years old to his father. When Hiranyakashipu is back from his tapasya, and he's back ruling, but he's waiting, he's looking forward to Kayadu and what happened to Kayadu. So nobody knew, because Narad Muni kept in his ashram, and he with his divine powers, nobody could knew where the Kayadu was. And then at the right time, when Prahlad Maharaj is 5 years old, he takes back to Hiranyakashipu. And then we'll see the due to his next slide, Prabhu, please. Due to the association of Narad Muni, he gains complete. He becomes a complete pure devotee, and in this sloka from the 7th chapter, 31. Sorry, 7th canto, 4th chapter, 31 and 32. The various good qualities of Prahlad Maharaj is mentioned here, and which I have noted here. He is a cultured Brahmin. Okay, so you see the Brahmanya. So now you see, I was talking to you earlier that he is born of a demon. Okay, he is born in a Kshatriya demon family, but he is called as a Brahmanya. So this clearly explains that you can become a Brahmana by the virtue of good qualities, not necessarily by the uh, birth. So yes, as you say, if you are born in a Brahminical family, the cultured Brahminical family, it is very easy for you to become a cultured Brahmin because all the samskaras there. But it is not necessarily. It's the same like the doctor's son can become a doctor because in his family he has complete guidance and the environment. But it is not necessarily that he can become a doctor. But there is a favorable what you call environment to become a doctor. So similarly, the Prahlad Maharaj here, by the association of Narad Muni in the womb, he was already a cultured Brahmin, full of Shila Sampanna, full of good qualities. Then Satya Sandho, inquirer of absolute truth. Then Jitendriya, the sense controlled. Then Atma, what's Atma Sarva Bhutanam, friend of all the living entities. Then he was very humble servant. Then he was obedient, Ajna Dharak. Then he was respecting elders, Dasa, Vatsan, and then compassionate, Pitruva Dina Vatsala. He was very, what you call, compassionate like a father to the people who are in suffering or below him or, in the ignorance. So he was very compassionate. Then he was brotherly to equal people. He was Bhatru Vatsal, Bhatru Vatsal, Drashe. He had that Drishtikon. Then he was very snigdho, he was very affectionate, and he was worshipping gurus as like the Lord. He was taking their instructions. So if you see the story of Prahlad, Shukracharya, actually, Shukracharya was not a very favorable guru for Prahlad in terms of worshipping Lord Vishnu. But the Shukracharya comes in the picture little later stage of life when Prahlad Maharaj is already established as a king, because he also had gone for tapasya, and that's the reason during the Prahlada's time it was Shand and Amar, the two sons of Shukracharya, were in the picture. You will not find that until that. So when Shukracharya comes in, already Prahlad is a devotee, is a well established king there. So but still Prahlad took Shukracharya for Niti lessons as a guru, and he worshipped him like a Lord. So he did not discriminate because he's a Daitya guru, he's always envious of Lord Vishnu. No, he actually, because in the Niti Shastra, the best teacher is a Shukracharya in the entire world. So that's the reason, actually, some of the lessons for the ruling purpose were taken from the Shukracharya by Prahlad Maharaj. Then he is very educated. He is affluent because he was born. You can imagine he was having the entire universe, which was conquered by Hiranyakashipu under him. Then he is handsome. He is born of Kayadu, the beautiful wife of Hiranyakashipu. So he was handsome. He had royal birth, and he was free of ego. He did not have any ego. He did not utter a single word, no matter the servants of king once upon a time tortured him. So he did not get hurt. You know, I am a son of king. How can you hurt me? Or how can you speak back? Never. He was totally free of ego. So all these good qualities were there in Prahlad Maharaj. So, you know, Prabhuji had mentioned that, you know, please, I should mention the good qualities of Prahlad Maharaj. And also in the scriptures, it is mentioned that when one becomes a pure devotee of the Lord, automatically all the good qualities come to that person. So you can see that live example of Prahlad Maharaj. Once you become a pure devotee, automatically all the good qualities fall in automatically. Then, next slide, please. the When Prahlad Maharaj comes back to Hiranyakashipu, and then, you know, Kayadu explains all the scenario to Hiranyakashipu, and then Hiranyakashipu takes the Prahlad Maharaj on his lap, and he's actually, you know, until the initial period, he's so affectionate because Prahlad Maharaj was such a nice boy. You know, he was a nice and cute little boy, and with full of good qualities, as you can see that he was so obedient to his father, and he was so respecting to his, I mean, he was much different, far much different than the Aditya boys. He was lovely. I mean, anybody could, you know, fall in love with him when you see Prahlad. That being such a powerful, he loved Kayadu being a chaste wife, and then his son, which was born out of her. So he was loving her. So he lovingly took in his on his lap, and then asked, you know, Prahlad, so tell me what you learned from your gurus and your this thing. So then Prahlad Maharaj starts, you know, instructing Hiranyakashipu. And what the first instruction that he gives him, that next shloka, Prabhu, please. Sorry, next slide, please, Prabhu. Haribol. Yeah. And you see this is the instructions to Hiranyakashipu. Can you believe that a small boy of 5 years old instructing the most powerful person in the universe after Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh? So fearless he was, and this is the one of the qualities of the devotee, that they are totally fearless. Srila Prabhupada, you know, at the age of 70, went on the boat to America where it was snowing, nobody on the street, he didn't knew where to go, with just 40 rupees in his pocket, with not even proper English. He could speak with no idea of the sustaining there, but he was totally fearless and totally dependent on the Lord. He went and he did a magic there. Can you imagine? He, in 12 years of his life after he went to America, he, you know, went around the world so many times and established around 100 temples before he left the body. And he made around 10,000 devotees. Amazing. So these are the qualities of the devotee. So Prahlad Maharaj instructing Hiranyakashipu, this is, I am sure the Mataji and Prabhuji will take you, all the audiences, in detailed classes on this in the future eventually. But I'll just take the gist because of the time constraint. I'll take just the gist of the instructions because we have to complete today the entire session. So the first instruction of Prahlad Maharaj is Shravanam Kirtanam. So first is a Shravan. We should do we should hear about Lord Vishnu and in the pastimes. Then about the qualities, name, holy name, form, qualities, the paraphernalia, pastimes of the Lord Vishnu. Then Kirtanam. We should also chant the name of the Lord, the glories, sing his glories. Then Vishnu Smaranam. Then we should remember and Smaranam, then the Pada Sevanam, which is the serving of the lotus feet of the Lord. Then Archanam, offering respectful worship with the 16 types of paraphernalia. So 16 types, which are the different 16 types of paraphernalia? Mataji will tell you in the detail. So I'm not getting into the Archa Vigraha at this moment, but basically the Narada Pancharatrika, where Narad Muni explains how we should worship the Lord. So that is the method usually most of the time is followed in Gaudiya Vaishnava and other Vaishnava temples, including Dwarka. So 6 times in a day we offer the artis to the Lord. So we offer ghee lamp, we offer chamaras, we offer fan, we offer dhupa, we offer bhoga. So there are different things in those 16 types. I'll not get into detail, but we should do that archanam. Then vandana, basically we should offer respectful obeisances to him, and then we should also offer prayers to him. Then dasya basically we should take as a servant's role, ai nanda tanuja kinkaram. So basically we have to take the role of a servant there and serve Lord or his devotees, offering prayers to the Lord. Sakyam Atmanivedam. Then Atmanivedam is basically revealing your heart to the Lord. Being honest to him, telling your thoughts, sharing your thoughts with him, and then surrendering to him, with serving him with the body, word, and mind. These 9 processes are accepted as a pure devotional service. So this is basically Navavidha Bhakti, the same Navavidha Bhakti which is given by Lord Rama to Shabri. So you see, if you see the Ramayana, Shabri says, before I leave this body, please give me, as my Guru has instructed. He left behind the instruction that when the Lord Ram visits you, that please take the Navavidha Bhakti from me. So Rama then sings the Navavidha Bhakti instructions to her, Shabri. The same type of Navavidha Bhakti here is mentioned in Prahlad Maharaj. And this instruction is for all of us. It's not only meant for Hiranyakashipu, but he gives it to Hiranyakashipu, saying that, what you should do is, and what my gurus have taught me, that we should do this. What we should do? Sharanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasayanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakya, Atma, Nivedanam. This is what we should engage ourselves. So you will find another Mahajan, which is, I'm not sure whether it's already covered or not covered yet, which is Amrish Maharaj. And you will find in his teachings or in his glorification, he also was engaged in the Lord's service, Lord's devotional service in the same manner. So with his mouth, he was singing the glories of the Lord. With his ears, he was, that kind of explanation you will find also. It's the same, more or less same for all the Mahajanas. So this is the process for the Navavidha Bhaktis for all the devotees. It's not only meant for from Prahlad to Hiranyakashipu. It is meant for all the devotees. And it begins with the Shravanam. And then in the scriptures, it is also mentioned that, say, for example, you are in a very, difficult situation that you are not able to perform all the 9 aspects of it. But even if you perform one of them, still you can become a pure devotee and you can achieve the ultimate goal of life, which is going back to Godhead. Even if one of them. So Parikshit Maharaj, for example, he could not do anything else but just listen Srimad Bhagavatam during the end of his life. So Shravanam, just Shravanam. All he did is listen to Srimad Bhagavatam attentively for the 7 days. And now Shukadeva Goswami, what he did? He was doing kirtan. He was glorifying the Lord by speaking Bhagavatam. So like there are champions of each of these activities. You will find that in each Mahajana, they are the champions of each of them. And some of them, they are champions of everything. And some of them, they were able to do follow all the Navavidha Bhaktis. So this is one of the most important instruction of Prahlad Maharaj. Even if you just take this one slide, your life will be successful. Nothing else is required. Just one instruction from Prahlad Maharaj's life. And that's it. Nothing else. So this is one instruction. And then Prahlad Maharaj had a couple of instructions, but this is again, next instruction is Martina Krishne Parata Swataho Va Mitho Bhi Padyet Gruha Vratanam Adananto Gobhir Vi shatam tamishram punah punascharvita charmanam. So basically, I have taken these slokas because of I'm reading the translation. Because of their uncontrolled senses, persons too addicted to materialistic life make progress towards hellish conditions and repeatedly chew that which has been already chewed. And this refers basically the sense gratification process that we are engaged. So what Prahlad Maharaj is saying that okay, uh, uh, the ahar, nidra, bhay, maithun. These are the four activities which is the body is engaged during the animal life or the other life species of life out of the 84 million species. We actually in the human life is not supposed to do that, but actually we engage in the same activities. So actually we are doing what we have experienced all those bodily pleasures in our previous births also, in the various animals or the birds or all other species also offer those pleasures, even the dogs and cats and hogs. So that's what the Prahlad Maharaj is referring, that we have enjoyed those things, material things in the past also. This human body is not meant for that one. So what we are doing is we are chewing what has already been chewed, and their inclination towards Krishna are never aroused, either by the instruction of others, by their own efforts, or by the combination of both. So what Prahlad Maharaj is saying, that such people who are engaged, engrossed in the material sense gratification, I mean enjoying the bodily pleasures, cannot be attracted to Lord Krishna. So actually in this forum, if we are attracted to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, we are very fortunate people. Let me tell you, we are very fortunate people here by the mercy of the Lord, by the mercy of Guru Maharaj, by the mercy of the Vaishnavas who have made this arrangement to listen to this one. And we have been attentively listening to Srimad Bhagavatam. We are in a very, very fortunate position, because other people, you see, Dubai has got, say, 7 million people there. Out of that, how many Hindus are there? Just few million, say 3 million. Out of that, how many people are listening Srimad Bhagavatam? Very few. So you can imagine the number is in entire Dubai probably at the moment, maybe say 500 people probably, or maybe even less than that, could be even reading or listening to Srimad Bhagavatam. The total, I mean, talking about the entire Damodar Desh congregation, all the satsangas together, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Sharjah, Queen, all combined, hardly maybe less than 500 people must be listening Srimad Bhagavatam. So how fortunate we are. But those who are not, those who are attached to the sense gratification, bodily pleasures, they cannot be attracted to Krishna consciousness, and they will not know listen even. They will not even listen the others' instructions. They will not, even if you go and tell them please come for Srimad Bhagavatam, they will not. And they even if they want to do perform by their own efforts, they will not able to do that, because until, see, if you want to fill something, if you have a pot, and if it is already filled with something, you cannot pour new thing into that. You have to empty that vessel, then only you will be able to pour new thing in that. So in the same fashion, until we give up all these anarthas, which is basically the bodily sense gratification, our aparad oriented mm, mood, the engrossment in the sense gratification, we will not able to be attracted to Lord Krishna. So that is what the Prahlad Maharaj is saying in this. Then the next instruction, 7.530, Prahlad Maharaj is saying, persons who are strongly entrapped by the consciousness of enjoying material life, who have therefore accepted their leader or guru, a similar blind man attached to the external sense objects, cannot understand the goal of life is to return home, back to Godhead, and engage in the service of the Lord Vishnu. As a blind man guided by another blind man miss the right path and fall into the ditch. Materially attached men led by another materially attached man are bound by the ropes of fruitive labor, which are made of very strong cords, and they continue again and again in the materialistic life, suffering the threefold miseries. Threefold miseries basically the Adi Daivik, Adi Bhautik, Adhyatmik, the sufferings by others, suffering caused by the nature, suffering caused by our own mind. So we'll continue to get into this trigunya, I mean caused ruled by the three gunas, and we'll be continue to suffer again. What you call as Shankaracharya has mentioned. Puna puna jarma puna. Again getting into the womb of mother and again taking birth. Jathare Shayanam, that song is there. Bhaja
Yeah.
Govindam.
Yeah.
Punarapi Janamam.
So
Punarapi Janamam, Punarapi Maranam, Jatare Shayanam.
yeah, so yeah, Jathare Shayanam. So unless, and this particular shloka is basically it is talking about the leaders. So the leaders, if they are materially attached, they are not spiritually conscious. And if they are talking to you about this, what you call the material enjoyment, they are leading. I mean, this talks about the leaders from not just mentioning to one particular category, but anybody who is taking you back to sense gratification and not to the spiritual path. They are all actually leading you to the another ditch. They are blind spiritually, and they will just take you to another ditch, and that is another birth in the material world. They are not, if you associate with the devotees, the result is that they will take you back to Godhead. If not this life, next life, but for sure, because you are taking the right path. But if you are following any other gurus or any other motivational speaker who is just talking about you to do more, get more, work hard, it's not about not working hard, but the end goal, if it is not to getting attracted to Lord Krishna or getting into devotional service, then it's all waste. Okay, so that's the essence of this shloka. The another shloka is basically nishkinchina na vrinita yavata, unless they smear upon. See, this is the shloka I was talking about. Unless they smear upon their bodies the dust of the lotus feet of the Vaishnava, completely freed from material contamination. Persons very much inclined toward the materialistic life cannot be attached to the lotus feet of the Lord, who is glorified by his uncommon activities. Only by becoming Krishna conscious and taking shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, in this way, we can be freed from the material contamination. See, there is the only way. And so first of all, what path we should take? So yes, devotional service to the Lord Vishnu or Krishna is the only way for salvation. Now, how do we do that? By taking the dust of the lotus feet of Vaishnavas, means following the instructions of the Vaishnavas. So it is not that, okay, the Vaishnava has come from outside to collect his shoes and then take the dust. It's not the literal meaning. The literal meaning is that the following the instructions of the Vaishnavas, the Guru Maharaj. So that is the essence of this. Unless you take a bath, means unless you completely surrender unto the lotus feet of the Vaishnavas, I mean the pure devotees, there is no chance for you to get into the Krishna consciousness. There is no chance of you getting enlightened. So now one may ask a question that how is it that we are doing small satsangas in Dubai. We don't know who is pure, who is not pure. So there is a formula actually in the scriptures mentioned that sadhu shastra and guru. So you see there, whatever you learn from wherever you learn, you compare. So these three balancing things are there. You compare whether whatever the Prabhuji is saying, Mataji is saying, is as per the scriptures. And then whatever Guru is saying, it is as per the scriptures. whatever scriptures is saying is telling with the guru, the sadhus. So you can check the balance. Initial period we also did that one. Whatever, when we were new in ISKCON, we used to hear a lot of things, and we used to go back to the say I come from Maharashtra, so we have also in Maharashtra Warkari Sampradaya. So we used to check back whether they are saying you're chanting the holy name. Then we used to go, and in Maharashtra we have this famous Hari Part. So where Lord means the Saint Gnaneshwar has given this instruction, Hari Mukhe Mana, Hari Mukhe Mana. So basically what he's saying that you please chant the Lord of the Hari, name of the Lord Hari. So we check back every instruction whether it's telling. So what other sadhus, Saint Tukaram is there in Maharashtra. So we used to tally whether what ISKCON is being. And later we realized that actually whatever ISKCON is offering, the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya is offering, is much more authentic, and it's much more pure form compared to any other the scriptures we find back here in Maharashtra. So this was again my own realization, which I shared. But we can always check back, and I can tell you from the bottom of my heart, whatever Vinay Mukund Mataji, Vinay Mukund Prabhu and Sugunavrinda Devidasi Mataji are trying to offer to the very honestly, they are trying to spread this mission of Srila Prabhupada and Lord Gauranga to all the pious people in Dubai. So I can tell you, I can vouch for them. Not necessarily because they have asked me to uh, uh, speak, invited me to speak on this forum. Not because of that one, but I have seen their efforts when I was in Dubai, and also later stage of even if I have come back to India, I have been honestly seeing their progress, what they have been doing, and what they are trying to offer to the whatever possibly. So they're whatever they are trying to do is very genuine. So I'm sure you are in the right hands. So that's about this shloka. And then what happens is that Hiranyakashipu gets very angry with this um, reaction by Prahlad, and then he actually on the instruction of Shanda and Amar, actually he sends them to Gurukul. He sends Prahlad Maharaj to Gurukul, and under the guidance of Shanda and Amar to be studied. And actually whatever the Shanda and Amar are trying to teach him, Prahlad Maharaj rejects all the material education on politics, on the economics, everything else. He rejects all the material education, and actually he is engaged in the devotional activity there as well. And whenever he finds a time, there is a gap when the Shanda and Amar are busy with their routines. Prahlad Maharaj used to call the boys, and he used to engage them in the singing the glories of the Lord. Prabhuji, the next slide, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, it is almost 11 o'clock. How do we do that now? I'm little because I'm sure I have been speaking on a length. So what we do? Should we continue, or we should?
We can
stop
ask the
here,
devotees.
or-
We can ask the devotees in the forum. How are they placed? Is it okay to continue
Yeah,
for
because
10 minutes? Hare Krishna.
You can continue, Prabhuji. You can continue.
Prabhuji, take 10 minutes more.
I'm just worried about Sanjay Prabhu. It's 11 o'clock there, and I'm sure he must be.
no, I'm at all. I'm not. Don't worry about me, Prabhuji. I'm very fine with this one because actually I'm getting purified by this process, so I'm very happy to deliver it. But it's just a time constraint because I was told by Mataji that some of the Matajis are though there is a lockdown, there is no lockdown for Matajis.
So, Prabhuji, if you can take 10 more minutes.
Yes, please. Yes,
Yeah.
I will try to finish it off,
Yeah.
and then I'm sure we are very close.
Yeah.
So you can from this slide you can see that Prahlad Maharaj is engaging all the other Daitya Putras. Basically, they are the sons of the other demons, they are engaged in the singing the glories of the Lord. Then when the Shand and Amark see, okay, my God, this boy is actually converting our students also. He's now started preaching the Vishnu Bhakti to other boys also. Prabhuji, please next slide, where Prahlada being tortured by the demons. Yeah. So then the Shand and Amark, actually, they are very scared. So what they do is they take Prahlad and they just come back to Hiranyakashipu. And they said, this boy is actually contaminating our other students. So please, please do something about him. And then Hiranyakashipu is very angry. He actually argues with Prahlad, you please stop this one. Otherwise, I have to kill you. And then when Prahlad again starts giving him the other instructions, which I have not included in this presentation, then Hiranyakashipu actually, asks his servants, please torture him and then kill him. So all the demons, they are very happy to torture Prahlad, but Prahlad Maharaj is very peaceful. He's listening, just remembering the Lord Vishnu, and just not bothered about the external circumstances, because he had complete faith that Lord will protect him. He was just bothered about what happened to his body. Then when he's not killed by that process, the next slide, please, Prabhuji. When he is not even killed by the various sharp weapons, then he asks them to give under the wild elephant's feet. That is the another method of punishing the people. So the aparadhis. So actually Prahlad is given that one, but actually the elephant, so it doesn't work. He gets pacified automatically by the Lord in his heart, and he doesn't kill Prahlad. Instead, he actually kills the other demons, the demon servants. So many ways Hiranyakashipu tries to torture Prahlad, but nothing happens. Then he tries to throw. Next slide, please. He tries to throw Prahlad from the top of mountain, cliff of mountain, but again the Lord Vishnu, takes him, catches him, and nothing happens to Prahlad. He's back again in the picture. And then Shand and Amark, when nothing can kill Prahlad, then Shand and Amark actually instructs, they suggest Hiranyakashipu that, we'll try to teach Prahlad the politics and economics and other vidyas, Sama, Dama, Danda, Bhed. So we'll try once again. So when Prahlad Maharaj is back again in Gurukula, what happens is that he starts giving serious instructions to his classmates, and he actually instructs them the real purpose of life. So 2 shlokas are included in that one, and this is again very important shloka. Kaumara Acharet Prapyo Dharman Bhagavata Durlabam Manusha Janma Tadapya Dhruva Madartham. So in that shloka, it's very clearly, first of all, the Manushya life, the human life is very rare, Durlabh. Okay, and that's the reason why what we should do right from the Kaumara Avastha, which starts at the age of 5. We should engage in the devotional activities. So not necessarily one has to give up the studies, the students, but this can be as a parallel activity. The samskaras can be parallel to your modern studies. So we also try the same thing because Sham is right now 6 years old, and we are also trying to teach him as much as possible the spiritual side of it. Not necessarily he goes to a ICSE school, ICSE pattern school, one of the best school in the area available. At the same time, at the home, he is learning all the shlokas. He is doing Tulsi Puja. He sings Narsimha Arti. So we try to engage him as much as possible. We don't force him, but we try to encourage him as much as possible. Because it is very important for a person to have bhakti in the life. It is very, very important. So Prahlad Maharaj has instructions here that it should start right from don't wait for the retirement age. Don't wait for you become old. Or some people, they say, bhakti is meant for old people. All those are misconceptions. It's very, very clear here. Prahlad Maharaj says, Komaram Acharet. Right from the age of 5 or Kumaravastha. That's where we should start this. Next slide, Prabhu. And then he instructs to his fellow mates, saying that, my dear friends, born of demoniac families, the happiness perceived with the reference to the sense objects by contact with the body cannot be obtained in any other form of life. So, I mean, there are 84 million species. So, this sensing enjoyment is available in other forms also. According to one's past fruitive activities, such happiness is automatically obtained without endeavor, just as we obtain distress. So, the core message is here: we don't try. I mean, we have so many problems in our life. We have so many miseries in our life. We don't try for that. We don't plan for it, but still they come. So, similar way, the sukha prapti or the even happiness will also come automatically. We don't have to try very hard for that one. That's what the Prahlad Maharaj is trying to say. And it doesn't mean giving our existing occupation. We just that we don't have to get infatuated with it. That's what the essence is. It's not because I was also working once upon a time, and right now also I'm working harder. I mean, there is a lockdown, but I'm working almost 8 to 10 hours here. And last 10 days back, I was working for 20 hours in a day, along with the JCB in my farm. So none of them, the instruction is not to give up your occupation, but don't get infatuated with it. That's the idea. It will come. Just do the nishkam karma. That's what the instruction is. Then when the Ashand and Amar totally failed actually to convert Prahlad into Rakshasa Dharma or to teach him the teachings of Hiranyakashipu, then they realize this is the case gone out of our hands. So they come back to Hiranyakashipu and tell them, please take care of this boy. He's actually spoiling all our students. He's teaching now Vishnu Bhakti to our students, and he will convert the entire Gurukul into Vishnu Bhaktas. So please, do something with him. We don't want to take part into this one. So then Prahlad is again the Hiranyakashipu applies various method of torturing him to kill him, and then he's putting into the boiling oil pot. But actually nothing happens to Prahlad because he's always remembering the Lord. Satatam kirtayanto. Then the next method of torturing him is Prahlad left alone amongst the venomous serpents. And then Prahlad, if you see, one of the good qualities that he was seeing the Lord into all the living entities. He was seeing the Lord, he was seeing all the living entities as equal, as the creation of the Lord. So when he being such a pure and seeing the Lord into everyone's heart, he was actually seeing the Lord into the hearts of the serpents. Though they were venomous, because of his purity, none of the serpent actually could do anything to him. So this is the power of bhakti. And then finally, after trying all the methods of killing Prahlad and being failed, Hiranyakashipu actually, is very aggrieved. And he asked Prahlad, what makes you, the entire universe is terrified with me. Just with my eyebrows, when I raise my eyebrows, the devatas in the Swargaloka are terrified. They run away here